Shalom. First off, I'd like to give an all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Yahweh, who the world generally calls God, in the name of Yahushai, who the world generally calls Jesus Christ. Secondly, I'd like to give a double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, who continue to teach us this truth. And salutations to you, Akim, out there doing the work of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, sincerely. All right. The name of this is another to the point lesson, and we're going to go into Jeremiah. We're going to go into Jeremiah and Ezekiel. So this is Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 20. It says, "Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war." All right, and who's the Lord talking to in this verse here? He's talking to his people, Israel, but not just any one of his people, Israel. You know, the elect men of the nation of Israel who are going to be blessed with that spiritual power to help bring judgment unto the nations by hands of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. He's calling them, Lord willing, I'm one of those men, his battle axes of war. All right. It says, "For with these will I break in pieces the nations, and with these will I destroy kingdoms." All right. So the Lord's going to destroy kingdoms with these men. All right. He's going to destroy nations with these men. All right. And now these men aren't going to be regular men. These are going to be men that have been blessed with spiritual power. These are going to be men that are going to destroy these kingdoms, no matter what weaponry they think they have. It says, "And with thee shall I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider." Oh yeah, it says the horse and his rider, and then it says the chariot and his rider. You know? It says, "With thee also will I break in pieces man and women, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young." All right? So these men that the Lord is going to bless with that spiritual power, man, they're going to be just machines, man, that are just going to be bringing judgment on all things, on men and women. All right? It says, "And with thee will I break in pieces old and young, and with thee will I break in pieces young man, the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock, and with thee I will break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen, and with thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers." All right, so the Lord's battle axes of war, all right, they're going to be the ultimate equalizer. They're going to be a tool that the Lord is going to employ to really bring judgment onto these kingdoms that have dealt wickedly with the nation of Israel and have ultimately dealt wickedly with the Lord's people. All right, it says, verse 24, "And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion, in Zion, in your sight, saith the Lord." You know? So because of the way that these nations have dealt with the nation of Israel, all right, how they've dealt with the Lord's people, how they've dealt with the Lord in general, you know, they've made the Lord into a so-called white man with long hair and a goatee. All right? They've lied on the Lord and said that the Lord is all love. You know? They've defaced the angels. All right? And they've made the Lord's people, they've lied and said that the Lord's people are so-called white men with things dangling from the side of their face that we're all black and don't go to and don't work on Saturdays. That's some of the lying that they've done on the Lord, man. And all these lies that these nations have done, all right, telling the Lord's people that they're nothing, telling the Lord's people that they're irrelevant, telling the Lord's people that they're second-class citizens, meanwhile they're the most important nation on the planet. These people they're gonna pay for that, man. They're gonna pay for that. They're gonna pay for being. They're gonna pay for their wicked acts for dealing wickedly with the Lord's people, man. Well, I had said Ezekiel, but it's actually Isaiah. This is Isaiah chapter 41. This is Isaiah chapter 41, verse 14, and it reads, "Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel, I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel." Who's the Redeemer? The Redeemer is talking about Yahweh Shai. All right? The Redeemer is talking about Yahweh Shai, who the world didn't really call Jesus Christ, man. It says, "Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains and beat them small, and make the hills as chaff." All right? So this is the Lord saying that he's going to essentially give his people an upgrade, man. He's going to be by our side, and he's going to give his people an upgrade. He's going to make us into a threshing instrument with teeth. All right? When something has teeth, it makes me think about like a bread knife or a serrated knife, or even a fisherman's knife with a hook at the end. You know, when something has teeth, it's very traumatic when someone gets like stabbed with it, or when someone gets hurt with something that has teeth, like a saw. The injuries are extremely traumatic. And the Lord said he's going to make his people into an instrument, into a sharp threshing instrument, all right, that has teeth, all right? He's going to make his people into weapons, just like how it said in Jeremiah, where it said his people were going to be his battle weapons of war, battle axes of war. It says, "Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains and beat them small," right? The mountains is talking about the governments, man. The governments, the ruling kingdoms of this world. It says, "And beat them small, and thou shalt make the hills as chaff," and you shall make the smaller governments as chaff. Chaff is something that's ground up into really small particles. That's chaff. All right. A more recent um a more recent application of chaff is what the so-called white man uses a lot of the times when people speak about chemtrails. You know, those particles that he's spraying up there. All right, they're actually really small powdered. They're really small powdered particles, and these powdered particles, they have different functions. Some of these small powdered particles, they reflect sunlight. Some of them disrupt radar and things like that for applications of war. But the point is that these small governments are going to be beaten down into chaff, into something small, almost into like a fine powder. All right. And it says, "Thou shalt fan them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them. And thou shalt rejoice in the Lord, and shall glory in the Holy One of Israel." All right. So, after these nations are beaten, all right, they're going to be scattered, kind of like how the chaff is scattered in the wind. It's going to be like nothing. It's going to be like a powder going into the air, you know? And guess what? When that happens, the nation of the Lord, the nation of Israel, we're gonna rejoice in that time. And the reason that we're gonna rejoice is because these kingdoms are gonna be taken down, all right, by the hands of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, so not only are these kingdoms gonna be taken down, but these kingdoms are gonna be the reason, the destruction of these kingdoms rather is gonna be the reason why then the people of the Lord, the nation of Israel, are going to be able to rise up and rule forever and ever and ever under Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and the Yahushai in the kingdom of heaven, man. We can't rule together. The Lord needs to essentially the Lord needs to make space for his people to rule. We can't rule together. We can't rule with the so-called white man. That's part of the problem why, that's part of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in right now. Because because the so-called white man doesn't want the nation of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and the people that descend from them. He doesn't want you to have things of your own. You know, he wants you to be integrated with him because like that he can control you. Because at the end of the day, you can't build on another man's kingdom. And that's exactly what's going on here, man. The so-called white man needs to go down, man. His kingdoms, his kingdom and his nations need to go down before the nation of Israel can rule. All right. So hey, man, this was just a quick to the point. Jeremiah 51 and Isaiah 41. Right. I'd like to give an all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Number one, the apostles and others of great millstone who rule well, continue to teach us this truth. I hope this lesson was edifying. And until next time, shalom.